We'll begin with the headlines. President Paul Kagame has held a phone conversation with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, focusing on strengthening the cooperation between Rwanda and Egypt. Catholic Christians here in Rwanda have joined others across the globe to mark Good Friday. And on the international scene, the militant group Hamas has rejected the latest ceasefire proposal from Israel, saying it will no longer accept interim deals. Now let's move on to the details. I'm glad you're able to join us. The presidents of Rwanda and Egypt, Paul Kagame and Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, have reaffirmed that the relationship between the two countries is strong and will continue to grow. This was highlighted during a phone conversation between the two heads of state on Thursday. According to Ambassador Mohamed El Shenawi, the spokesperson of the Egyptian presidency, the two leaders discussed ways to further strengthen bilateral cooperation, particularly in areas related to economic development. He noted that the relationship between Rwanda and Egypt is deeply rooted in long-standing historical ties and focuses primarily on mutually beneficial initiatives for their citizens. In addition to discussions on regional security, especially efforts to restore peace in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the two presidents also explored strategies to enhance cooperation among Nile Basin countries in a way that ensures shared benefits for all parties involved. Now, as we noted in the headlines, Catholic Christians say that Good Friday holds deep meaning for them, as it is a day to remember the death of Jesus and the path of suffering he endured before being crucified, an experience that strengthened their faith. Good Friday is one of the most significant days in the calendar of the Catholic Church. In many countries, including Rwanda, it is observed as a public holiday. For Catholics in particular, it is a solemn day marked by reflection on the suffering Jesus endured before his death. Some practices are even avoided on this day in reverence. One of the key observances is the Way of the Cross, during which believers walk a symbolic path, meditating on the stages of Christ's suffering, from his condemnation by Pilate to carrying the cross, his falls along the way, and ultimately to his crucifixion. Catholics say this spiritual journey helps deepen their faith. They emphasize that Good Friday is crucial to commemorate because the foundation of the Catholic belief is rooted in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Father Joseph Guiza, priest serving at St. John Bosco Parish in Kicukiro, explained that this is a day of sorrowful and spiritual reflection for Christians, a time when they internalize the pain Jesus suffered for humanity. Good Friday is part of the Easter Triduum, a 3-day sacred period. It begins on Holy Thursday evening, marking the Last Supper and Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, and continues through Good Friday when he was crucified, and culminates on Holy Saturday, a day of silent waiting before celebrating the resurrection. Now, 2 people have been killed and 7 others injured in an accident involving 3 vehicles on the road from Kigali to Musanze in an area known as Kanyinya. The accident was caused by a Toyota Hilux that dangerously overtook another vehicle at high speeds, crashing into an oncoming vehicle, which in turn collided with the car that had just been overtaken. The speeding vehicle veered off the road and hit a tree, leading to the deaths of the 2 people inside. The 7 others injured in the other vehicles, the 7 others were injured in the other 2 vehicles involved in the crash, one of which was a rickshaw bus transporting passengers. Now, Chinese and Indian investors here in Rwanda have pointed out that the government's continued implementation of investor-friendly policies is what keeps attracting large numbers of foreign investors to the country. This comes after a report by the Rwanda Development Board showed that Chinese and Indian nationals were the top foreign investors in Rwanda last year. The head of a Chinese factory producing doors and windows using modern technology and equipment, as well as another who runs plastics manufacturing company, both lead industries established through large-scale investments by the Hallmark Group, a Chinese company that has already invested millions of US dollars across various sectors here in Rwanda, explain more about this.
The government is very good. They suppose us to do factory here. For example, I'm foreigner people, many things I don't know, but the government, they suppose me how to do this, that, next step how to do, to get the document for everything. So I'm really happy to do business here.
The Rwanda government is highly efficiency and clean, so I think it's very rare in Africa. Also, in this market, I think they have a stable currency exchange rate, so that is good for the Chinese investor. Yeah, this is the biggest advantage for Rwanda.
Huang Di of Hodan Furniture Technology Company Limited and Jimmy Jenlei of Kigali Plastics Limited speaking to RBA earlier. Now, their views were echoed by Ahmad Sharma, the director of Meraki Industries, an Indian-owned company. According to him, like the Chinese, Indian investors have also been drawn to Rwanda due to the conducive business environment.
I think, the government of Rwanda, if you see the vision and mission, which is, you can actually read through, which is available online, and when you actually meet these people, you see that these people are actually working towards those vision and, mission, and which gives you confidence that, the government is very, they are very serious.
All three investors speaking to our colleague Placide Ngirishuti earlier. Now, the Rwandan government continues to give priority to attracting foreign investment, as recently emphasized by Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente when he addressed Parliament on the state of industrial development in the country. According to the latest from RDB, overall investment in Rwanda increased by 32.4%. In 2024, the country recorded an increase of $0.8 billion in investments compared to the previous year of 2023. In 2023, registered investments stood at $2.4 billion, while in 2024 they rose to $3.2 billion. Chinese investors led the way in 2024, contributing as much as $460 million in investments, followed closely by Indian investors who brought in $445 million. Now, the seventh integrated household living conditions survey, that is, according to that survey, the number of Rwandan households owning mobile phones rose to 84.6% from 66.9%. William Evans Mutabazi explores the impact this has had on Rwandans and what the figures actually mean.
The seventh Integrated Household Living Conditions Survey, launched by the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, 84.6% of Rwandan households own a mobile phone.
From 64, 70, 67, now 87%. At least there's a phone.
This can only suggest that a silent revolution has taken place, one that transcends age, gender, and social status. Phones are life. This is most witnessed when a phone runs out of battery. A lot of things are at risk of dying, and everything seems and feels lifeless. Many people run to their phones first thing when they rise from bed. This is how important a phone has become in our age. As a business, we are obliged to hang Momo codes and telephone numbers for our clients to make payments there. Mobile phones have woven themselves into the very fabric of Rwandan life, becoming more than just tools of communication. They are lifelines that connect families, friends, and businesses. In business, since we use the electronic billing machine system, many of us keep these on our phones. Clients also use phones to make payments, and we too for other transactions. Owning a mobile phone these days is very important. Simply put, phones have transformed our lives and society completely by making a lot of things easier. For example, I am from Rubavu district, and being in Kigali doesn't stop me from knowing what's happening back home, or even supporting them financially or in case of any emergencies. As motorists, almost all our clients prefer using phones for payments. This means we have to have our phones charged all the time. This makes money actually very safe. From bustling marketplaces in Kigali to remote villages in the countryside, the rhythmic sound of notification and the glow of screens have become commonplace. But what question did the survey ask?
What we ask here is, for a household member 10 years and above, is there someone who owns a phone? In some households, there could be more than one person. It could be 3, it could be 4. But what matters is there a phone in the household? And we want to say, the change is quite significant. Amazing where we've come from 64, 70, 67, now 87%. At least there's a phone. In some houses, it could be more. But here we're saying there is a phone in a household. That phone could be a feature phone, could also be a smartphone. Those with smartphones, about 34%. There's still significant gain in terms of 2017. And more interestingly, the gains are substantial when you talk of the poor, quintile 1, quintile 2. That's where the biggest gain has happened in terms of improved access to a phone. A phone is a key thing for households to own, as we'll show in some other aspects.
According to the audited financial results for the year ended 31st December 2024, Mobile Money Rwanda Limited, MOMO, was at the forefront of Rwanda's digital financial revolution, with active subscribers surging to 5.3 million in 2024. According to the same report, MOMO Pay's merchant network grew to over 520,000, with active users reaching a record 3.2 million, meaning more Rwandans and businesses than ever before are relying on MOMO for everyday payments, savings, lending, and seamless money transfers, both locally and internationally, as well as between wallets and banks. William Evans, RwandaTV News.
In Karongi district, 117 bodies of the victims of the genocide against the Tutsi were laid to rest in dignity on Friday. The bodies were recently discovered in the sectors of Gishura, Rubengera, Gitesi, Rugabano, all located in Karongi. On the 18th of April, back in 1994, people who had sought refuge at the Gatkwaro Stadium and Chibwe Hospital were brutally massacred during the genocide against the Tutsi. During the memorial event for the victims killed in what is now Gishura sector, home to Karongi town, emphasis was placed on the role played by the former prefect of what used to be Chibwe Prefecture, Clement Kaishema, in the genocide, the involvement of soldiers and Interahamwe militia in the massacres targeting those who had taken refuge at the hospital and stadium under false promises of protection was also highlighted. The Chief Justice of Rwanda, Domitille Mukanaganswa, joined the community in the commemoration, urging genocide survivors to continue rebuilding their lives. The ceremony began with the laying of wreaths at 3 memorial graves in Karongi town, followed by the dignified burial of the 117 genocide victims at the Gatkwaro Genocide Memorial. These 3 mass graves and the Gatkwaro Memorial are the final resting place of more than 30,000 victims of the genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda. 96 bodies of victims of the genocide against the Tutsi were laid to rest in dignity at the Murire Genocide Memorial in Rwamagana district, that's in the eastern province. Of these, 81 were recently discovered, while 15 were reburied after being relocated from previous burial sites. The organization, Ibuka, which advocates for the rights of genocide survivors, has raised concerns about the resurgence of genocidal ideologies both within Rwanda and abroad. Its Secretary General has called on all Rwandans to actively and decisively fight against the resurgence. Before the genocide against the Tutsi, Murire Hill was home to many Tutsi families, most of whom were cattle herders. Over 50,000 people had sought refuge there and resisted attacks for more than 10 days, even managing to push back some major assaults. However, on the 18th of April 1994, they were targeted in a deadly onslaught involving members of the Presidential Guard, communal police, gendarmes, and Interahamwe militia from nearby communities, including Bichumbi, Muhazi, Gikoro, and Rutonde. Very few survived. Today, the Murire Genocide Memorial is a final resting place for 27,184 victims of the genocide against the Tutsi. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, has pointed out that the history of the genocide against the Tutsi of 1994, particularly in the former commune of Maraba, now the sectors of Simbi and Maraba, is among the undeniable pieces of evidence proving that the genocide was premeditated. He made the remarks on Friday while joining residents of the sectors and others from across the country in commemorating the 31st anniversary of the genocide against the Tutsi. A large number of people from different parts of the country gathered in Huye district to remember the victims killed at the Catholic parish church of Simbi. During the commemoration, one body recently discovered was laid to rest in dignity. The president of Ibuka in Simbi and Maraba has urged anyone with information about the locations of more bodies to come forward so that they can be given proper burials. Minister Nduhungirehe referenced the infamous speech of Theodore Sindikubgabo, who was the president of the so-called interim government during the genocide, as clear evidence that what occurred was carefully orchestrated. The Simbi Genocide Memorial is the final resting place for over 40,000 Tutsi who were killed after seeking refuge there, many of whom had fled from various areas, especially from the former Gikongoro prefecture.
arababwiraga data bati ntabwo wagira umukamo mwinshi utunze inka imwe, ariko nigeze acika intege. Mama akinjira mu bucuruzi hari abamubwiraga bati ntabwo watera imbere udakorera mu iduka rigezweho, ariko ntibyamusubije inyuma, yakoranaga umwete. Njya muri kaminuza hari abanshidikanyagaho bavuga ko nashobora kaminuza naturuka mu muryango wifashije, ariko byarangiye nanditse amateka mashya. Igihe cyo gutera ishema umuryango wanjye kigeze, bamwe bakomeje kumbwira bati ntabwo watera umuryango wawe ibyishimo n'ishema, ariko narabishoboye. Hari abakekaga ko nasigira umurage ukomeye abankomokaho, ariko ubu mfite uruganda rutunganya amata. Banki ya Kigali yabaye umufatanyabikorwa wanjye mu rugendo rwose, inzozi zanjye ziba impamo. Bigereho.
Ngiye kukubarira 1 2 3 itugwamo. So 1 2 3 gwamo. One bro. Mbere kanda akanyenyeri 3 kane 5 akanyenyeri 2 urwego maze nawe ugwemo.
Ndanezero umunezero nsaba umutima, ndakora akazi kanjye ndacatinga, data ntizishira, enda nawe gwamo.
Wikwisondeka.
Let us now take a look at news from elsewhere around the world. The militant group Hamas has rejected the latest ceasefire proposal from Israel, saying it will no longer accept interim deals. Hamas says it will only accept a deal that would lead to an end to the war. Israel proposed a 45-day truce, including the release of more hostages. 1 month ago today, Israel abandoned the original ceasefire deal and resumed strikes on Gaza. DW News with more.
The aftermath of an Israeli airstrike in Jabalia. According to local officials, at least 40 people were killed by strikes across the territory on Thursday.
There are still a number of missing people under the destruction caused by this bombing. A number of injured and martyrs were transferred to the Baptist hospital, and the crews are still working to find more people in the targeted area.
This family is mourning the death of their daughter. She was killed after a classroom functioning as a shelter for displaced people was hit. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry reports more than 1,600 Palestinians have been killed over the past month since Israel resumed fighting, ending a 2-month truce. On Thursday, Hamas rejected Israel's latest proposal for a temporary ceasefire. The Palestinian militant group says it will only accept a deal that will end the war.
Our movement is ready to immediately negotiate a deal to swap all hostages with an agreed number of Palestinian jails by Israel. To end completely the war against our people and to fully withdraw from Gaza Strip and to start the reconstruction in Gaza.
Israel is calling for the release of 10 hostages in return for a 45-day truce. In that time, it says both sides would negotiate a permanent ceasefire. The Israeli plan also calls for Hamas to disarm, demands the militant group rejects. As the negotiations have come to an impasse, the fighting in Gaza continues, and the suffering for the civilian population goes on.
Pakistan says that the number of Afghan refugees repatriated has now reached 1 million. Pakistan started pressuring Afghans to leave in November 2023, saying they pose a security threat. More than 1 million more Afghan refugees still live in Pakistan now, fear being forced to leave. With the number of repatriations rising sharply, there are concerns the situation in Afghanistan will turn into a humanitarian crisis. DW once more.
Border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, some of these men are packing up the only life they've ever known. Belongings piled high, they're being forced to leave the homes they've lived in for decades.
I don't want to leave, but I have no choice.
Mir Ali was born in Pakistan, but has no official Pakistani identity. He, his older brother and their family have chosen to leave voluntarily, with the threat of arrest looming.
We had been living in Pakistan for 40 years, and then we were ordered to go back, even though we did not do anything wrong. The way the Pakistani government communicated affected us, so I said to myself, if others are going back, I will go back too.
The Mir brothers are among the 1 million refugees Pakistan says it has repatriated to Afghanistan. Pakistan began forceful evictions of undocumented refugees in November 2023, and starting this month, it has expanded the policy to Afghans holding residence cards. Islamabad says the Afghans are a threat to the country's security and a burden on its weak economy, but not everyone agrees with the government's policy.
Afghan refugees are our brothers. We are deeply saddened when we hear that they have to leave, as we all have been living here together happily for the past 40 years, like one family.
The number of people returning to Afghanistan has ballooned, with estimates suggesting more than 100,000 border crossings this month alone. The UN and Amnesty International are warning of hunger, desperation and persecution for the new arrivals, but Mir Ali is trying to be optimistic.
We have nothing here, but the Taliban has set up a program for us in Kabul, and they will help us there. They got us a truck to help us transport our belongings. We have nothing, and ask for the government to provide us with land, houses and employment.
From one refugee camp to another, families forced to start again in a country where severe poverty is the norm.
Now, before we conclude this edition of the news, let us again take a look at the headlines. President Paul Kagame has held a telephone conversation with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, focusing on strengthening the cooperation that exists between Rwanda and Egypt. Catholic Christians in Rwanda have joined others across the globe to mark Good Friday. And on the international scene, the militant group Hamas has rejected the latest ceasefire proposal from Israel, saying it will no longer accept interim deals. I'm glad you were able to join us again for this edition, and I hope you continue to do so. Stay with Rwanda Television as the programs continue. Goodbye.
Ikaze ku mwanya w'iteganyagihe mutegurirwa na Meteo Rwanda mukaba mugiye kurigezwaho na Francine Musanganire kuri tariki ya 18 Mata 2025 ahenshi mu gihugu imvura yaguye ndetse mu bice byinshi yibanze ku masaha ya mbere ya saa sita. Ku gicamunsi rero ahaguye imvura niho habaye hake ugereranyije na mu gitondo. Iyi foto yafashwe n'icyogajuru ku masaha yo ku gicamunsi iratwereka yuko ku masaha ya saa 9 twari tugifite ibicu byiganje cyane cyane mu mujyi wa Kigali no mu majyepfo y'intara y'Iburasirazuba. Turateganya rero ko muri uyu mugoroba n'ubundi mu bice bimwe na bimwe by'intara y'Iburengerazuba hakomeza kuboneka ibicu byiganje. Ejo n'ubundi imvura irateganijwe ariko reka duhere ku bipimo by'ubushyuhe. Turateganya yuko mu masaha ya mu gitondo igipimo cy'ubushyuhe kiri hagati ya °C 9 ndetse na °C 16. Akarere ka Nyabihu nk'uko bisanzwe niko karere gakonje kuruta utundi turere tw'igihugu, ariko Musanze nayo ku munsi w'ejo izaba ikonje ko nayo izagera kuri °C 10 igihe Nyabihu izaba iri kuri °C 9. Turateganya imvura mu masaha ya mu gitondo. Imvura rero iteganijwe mbere ya saa 6 no kuvuga hagati isaha ya saa 12 ndetse na saa 6 z'amanywa ikaba iteganijwe mu turere twose tw'u Rwanda. Ku gicamunsi turateganya ko iyi mvura iziyongera ndetse ikazumvikanamo inkuba. Imvura ku gicamunsi n'ubundi nayo turayiteganya mu ntara zose duhereye mu majyaruguru, mu burengerazuba, mu ntara y'amajyepfo, umujyi wa Kigali ndetse no mu ntara y'Iburasirazuba. Turateganya kandi yuko igipimo cy'ubushyuhe ku masaha yo ku gicamunsi kizagera kuri °C 27 zizaboneka mu karere ka Nyagatare, igihe ahandi mu gihugu igipimo cy'ubushyuhe kizakira hagati ya °C 9 ndetse na °C 26. Dukomeze rero twitwararike ibijyanye no kwirinda ibiza bitewe n'uko imvura ikomeje kuba nyinshi. Umuyaga uteganijwe nawo ni umuyaga uringaniye ariko ushyira kuba mwinshi. Uyu muyaga uzaba ufite umuvuduko uri hagati ya metero 3 ndetse n'8 ku isegonda. Umuyaga kandi uzaturuka mu burasirazuba ugana mu bindi bice, ariko nugera mu majyepfo uzahura n'umuyaga uzaba uturutse mu burengerazuba. Tukaba rero tuzaba turi mu isangano ry'umuyaga ku munsi w'ejo ku itariki ya 19. Iteganyagihe ry'iminsi 5 rirakomeza kutwereka ko mu Rwanda ndetse no mu karere muri rusange dukomeje kugira ibihe by'imvura. Ibihe rero by'imvura bikaba bisaba ko twitwararika cyane cyane dukumira ibiza abishobora guturuka ku mvura nyinshi kandi irimo kugaragaramo inkuba ndetse n'umuyaga mwinshi. Dusoze tubabwira yuko ku munsi w'ejo ku wa gatandatu ku itariki ya 19 Mata izuba rizarasa saa 11:54 za mu gitondo cyangwa saa 12:04 z'umugoroba. Tubifurije kugira weekend nziza.